Okay, Barry, looking ahead, we're talking about the state of the industry and where it's going. How do you see the situation in what, 15 months time, when we go into 2024? And I I see the biggest shake-up probably ever of the industry at that stage in terms of tracks with contracts and tracks without. My understanding is, for example, with the ARC tracks, I think the all the contracts expire the end of the previous year. Um, and do ARC, once Entain join them, do they need all of those tracks? And how do you see them operating?
Well, it's an interesting one. I mean, I've got my own views on it. I think they made it clear that Entain tracks will form the core of the racing product for ARC, and it depends on how many other tracks they want to join them. I'm hoping that there'll still be a TRP media company and an SIS media company, because I think competition is healthy, and I think the bookmakers want the both as well, because otherwise, if there's just one provider, they can charge what they like basically, and if they still want the product, they'll be paying a lot more for it than they are at the moment, because at least there is some competition in fees that are being charged to bookmakers. But I think those tracks that, I mean, it's not rocket science. Those tracks, and we've said it, they won't race without a media contract. I think those tracks without a contract will close. It's as simple as that. Is it a bad thing? I don't know. It depends how the GBGB have performed. I mean, there's a lot I can say about the GBGB and their ineffectiveness, if you like. And it depends how, what stance they take and what support and what role they give themselves within the industry at large. I mean, it's, at the moment, we started this interview on the basis that things are changing and racing will continue, but probably without any attendance if something isn't done pretty quickly about that.
Do you really think, though, that the Greyhound board has any real clout? Because at the end of the day, if they try to impose a set of rules on either company, and as I said, I really don't want to go and look as though we've been biased to one side or the other, because I'm not.
Mm.
We need both. That's the way I see it. At the moment,
Yeah, I agree.
we're in big trouble. But if there was any issue where they said, "I'm sorry, but you will not be allowed to race," or we are not going to license you to race more than 3 times a week, or however way they try to intervene, surely to God, they haven't got a cat in hell's chance of taking them
No,
on.
and I don't think they should intervene in that way either. I mean, every time. I mean, the 4-day rule. On what basis have they made that decision? That's been imposed upon trainers, upon tracks. It's affecting them financially, and where's the data for that to have been the case? I mean, I think people have called to see that data, but I don't think it's been released. I don't think it's in the public domain. I don't think their actions should affect the businesses that we're talking about. I think what I'm thinking more of is maybe standards that they impose upon the tracks to meet, just to make sure that when the general public do come through the doors, they're having a more comfortable time, a re-evaluation of the fund money that comes in and where it's directed. We've spoken about that. I think it comes down to transparency as well. They need to get shareholders of the industry on side, and they're not at the moment. There is no transparency there. When Mark Moisley came on board, there was a big song and dance about track clocks, for instance. Where do we get with that? There may be 1 or 2 tracks that have got them, but what's been done? Where are they? What does the future hold in that regard? The van deal that Mark put together, I don't see that many trainers have taken that up. I actually heard that one trainer tried to, and he was told there was a 2-year waiting list, but there's no comeback on that. What's happening with the GBGB ambassadors? There was a big fanfare when Mark Bird introduced them, and that they were going to raise the profile of the industry and and sell the industry to more of the general public. I don't know what's happened there. So it's it's a difficult one for the GBGB, but there are little things that they could do to make people think, well, they are actually trying to do a better job than they've done in the past. Because at the moment, they're a one-trick pony, aren't they? It's all welfare, 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 welfare. And if you take that, and all of the money that's coming in to the fund is being directed in that way. And if you take that to its to a reasonable conclusion, there's still going to be dogs that get injured. It's a fact of life. It's racing, and they're athletes, and they will get injured. Some dogs won't get rehomed. So if everything is being directed towards that, the end position is, well, why are we bothering racing? We cannot take a view that we have to defend our sport in that way. Yes, I know that the animal charities have joined together. Why, I don't know, but they've joined together to try and see the close of greyhound racing. But the reality is, our politicians are a fickle bunch, and as the last few weeks we've seen, if they get it in mind that they want to stop greyhound racing in the UK, they'll stop it. It's as simple as that. We have to get on, and we have to attract more of the general public through our doors to make it a worthwhile spectator sport. That there are so many people involved with it, so many people that want it to continue, that nothing could be done to stop it. And we're not in that situation at the moment.
I think one of the things that you've kind of highlighted there, though, is that realistically, what is the greyhound board? And I sometimes find myself defending it for the reasons, as I said earlier, in that there is only so much they can do beyond, as you point out yourself, the cosmetic. Because at the end of the day, the money is in the fixtures. The money is basically, this industry is now run by the two media rights companies, one way or another. And all that the greyhound board can really do is the welfare side of things, the regulation side of things, and cosmetics beyond that. Because ultimately, ARC or SIS will determine where the money goes.
Well, to an extent, I agree with you. But the fact is, they can do more. They can raise the profile of this sport. They can get out there and they can sell it. They've got a commercial director who I've not seen any fruit coming from that appointment. They're making appointments every other week that people I've not heard of. They've got now area veterinary surgeons they're trying to recruit. They've taken on Scott Harvey. I don't actually know what his position entails. I don't know what his job description is. They've got Mark Moisley. They're taking on all these people based on their perceived requirements, but it's the promoters that are paying for this. And I'm sure that I wonder how many promoters have been approached as to whether or not that is something that they would support. But they can get out there and they can look at that fund and they can redirect some of that money to try and raise the profile of this industry. If they don't do that, we're dead in the water, and all we'll have is the same old racing every 5 minutes in the shops, just purely for the betting customer. I mean, everything that we see within the industry, even RPG TV, it's all relating to the betting individual, not the interesting or the interested individual that might want to come greyhound racing, has heard about greyhound racing, finding out a little bit more about what goes on in the industry, what's going on in the politics of the industry. I mean, there used to be a time when they used to have studio guests every race meeting. They don't do that now. They're remote. They're the same people. I'm not saying they do a bad job, but they're the same people, and people get turned off by it. And I haven't watched RPG TV for a long time, and you couldn't find anybody more interested in the sport than me up until 3 or 4 years ago. And if I've been turned off by it, then there've been a lot more that have as well.